Long ago, in a land known only as VGC, there was peace. Pokémon lived their lives in unique and diverse ways, and while sometimes there would be conflict, all was well. One day, however, in the year 2018, one Pokémon journeyed into the land of VGC and began to wreak havoc. There seemed to be no Pokémon strong enough to defeat this evil, and quickly it took over VGC, becoming king of the land to this very day. Occasionally, he will take vacations from VGC, leaving his loyal compatriot Arcanine to rule in his stead. 2023 was one of those years, with the king nowhere to be seen throughout the land. Many things have been said about this king. Some have said he's unfair. Some have claimed he's over-centralizing. But only one thing is for certain. He's coming back.
So, after 3 months of pain, Regulation E has finally come to a close. For those of you who don't know how regulations in VGC works, basically every couple of months, the Pokemon Company changes the competitive rule set on us. Some of these changes can be minuscule, and others can be like sending 20 nuclear missiles at the pre-existing metagame. After playing 6 major tournaments with Tornadus or Shifu basically remaining uncontested, I, among many others, am ready for a change. With the release of the second part of the Scarlet and Violet DLC, the Indigo Disk, a lot of meta-relevant Pokemon have been reintroduced or introduced for the first time into the game. Now, a lot of you may have some questions, such as, is this Pokemon good? What archetype should I be bringing to my regionals or locals? Or even just, what's new? Well, never fear, dear viewer, as I have all of these answers and more for you in my Regulation F Quick Guide. Let's get started. Okay, we're gonna start things off strong with Incinerar. You know him, you love him, maybe you don't love him, but he's here, he's back. And, Incinerar is pretty much the same he's always been. He gets Fake Out, he gets Intimidate, he gets Parting Shot, he's got way too many tools for a Pokemon to not be good. Great typing, great utility, just everything. You can pretty much put Incinerar anywhere. You can put Incinerar on a balance team. You can put Incinerar on a hyper offense team. You can put Incinerar on a trick room team. You can do whatever with him. He's great. We've seen lots of Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet just do really well with just Fake Out and Bulk, and now Incinerar has Intimidate, Fake Out, and Bulk. Iron Hands, Rillaboom, all of these Pokemon, Incinerar kind of just outclasses them. That is not to say that Iron Hands and Rillaboom won't still be used. They will. But Incinerar is just one of those Pokemon that will become a staple, expect to see it, have a counter for it, maybe even use it. As for new tools that Incinerar has gotten, because it needed more, it got Knockoff back, which is really helpful against Pokemon that are heavily reliant on their items, specifically some that I'll mention later, and it also got access to Helping Hand, which is probably not going to be used very much right now. It'll still be used on Tornadus or Shifu teams maybe to help boost that Surging Strikes damage even more. But I'm expecting Helping Hand on Incin to be way more useful when we get Restricteds in the format. As for items to run on Incinerar, Citrus Berry, Safety Goggles, Assault Vest, anything, it's gonna be good. You can do anything you want. I saw some cool teams with Covert Cloak so you don't get faked out. Incinerar can do anything. He's your guy. Okay, coming up next on my list is Entei, a sleeper pick that is surprisingly a really good all-arounder in this format. As soon as Chien-Pao got introduced into the metagame in Regulation C, we saw the power of Chien-Pao and Dragonite. Dragonite using Terra Normal E-Speeds to kind of just kill everything, and Entei gets that same tool. It's got Inner Focus, meaning it can't be flinched or intimidated, and it's got Extreme Speed. So you can put it on those kinds of teams, but that's also not all. You can put it on Hyper Offense teams that just don't have Chien-Pao. You can put it on Balance teams where you want a little more oomph from your Fire type than Incin offers. I think a lot of people going into this metagame thought about the last appearance of Entei, which was in Dynamax, where it kind of wasn't that great, but now it feels about as slappable as Incin does in this metagame, which is a big surprise, but a welcome one at that, because he's a really cool Pokemon. Items you can run on this thing, a lot of overflow with Incin. You can run Assault Vest, you can run Safety Goggles, Citrus Berry. I'd say probably the one item that you might not want to run on Incinerar that you can run on Entei would be Choice Band, because you can pair the Choice Band boosted Extreme Speeds next to Chien-Pao, and it's gonna kill shit. Entei really didn't need any new tools to make it really good in this metagame. It did get access to Trail Blaze, which has made some appearance on Terragrass Entei sets, but overall it's kind of just running a standard set of Sacred Fire, Extreme Speed, Stomping Tantrum, and insert move here, protect, coverage move, whatever. Okay, next up on the docket is Venusaur, kind of Sun's fallen angel, because Sun really hasn't been doing as well as we thought in early previews. There are some cool Sun hyper-offensive teams that don't include Venusaur that have been doing pretty well. Stefan Mott was running a cool hyper-offense team that I'll touch on later, but Venusaur really hasn't been anywhere. The thing is, Scarlet and Violet has been one of the most potent cases of power creep, and Venusaur just hasn't really stood the test of time. If you are going to run Venusaur, you should be running it on a Sun team, where it gets to click the Sleep Powder button as much as it wants to, and you can probably run it with a Covert Cloak or a Terra Ghost, something along those lines. Probably the most interesting buff to returning Pokemon is Latias and Latios. These Pokemon have been fine in previous formats. They've been okay in some non-restricted formats. They were fine in Sword and Shield for a bit, but they're really getting their chance to shine here because of the buff to their signature moves. Both Luster Purge and Mist Ball have gotten their power buff from 70 to 95. That is a pretty substantial boost to their base power, and they still retain the 50% chance to drop the special attack and special defense of a Pokemon. So, pretty good. Latias has seen some very strong early metagame results, as its bulk allows it to run some Tailwind support sets with Rocky Helmet, kind of akin to the Salamence teams we were seeing in the late stages of Regulation E. It helps support setup Pokemon like King Gambit, with strong Pokemon on the side like Landorus Incarnate. There's just some really cool balance teams running around, and you should be keeping your eye on that one. Latios has been used quite a bit less than Latias has, but it's still got a niche. Soldew gives it some really cool one-hit knockouts on things like Amoonguss. Keep your eye out for that one. Next up on the list is Whimsicott, a personal favorite Pokemon of mine. Now, Whimsicott might not get as used as much as I'd like it to, since Tornadus kind of just, well, I don't want to say outclasses it, but does a lot of things that Whimsicott doesn't do. Now, that is not to say that Whimsicott does not have a niche, because it does. It's faster than Tornadus, meaning that it gets to taunt it if it's not holding the Mental Herb, and it also supports a different roster of Pokemon than Tornadus does, admittedly those Pokemon being a little less strong than something like Urshifu. Whimsicott's unique access to Fake Tears allows it to support Pokemon like Fluttermane and Gholdengo, kind of similar to the Illumise team Carson and I ended up running at Peoria Regional Championships. Its access to the move Beat Up has given it some pretty interesting early strategies, consisting of beating up a Justified Pokemon to give it an attack boost. This is paired with the Swords of Justice, specifically Terrakion, because Rock Slide with attack boosts, pretty good. Whimsicott will always be one of those Pokemon to just keep your eye out on, even though it might get a little outclassed by something like Tornadus. Okay, next up on our list is Superior and Malamar? Okay, I'm gonna preface this. These Pokemon probably aren't very good. I just wanted to kind of note that they have gotten a pretty interesting new tool to work with. See, a new Terra type has been added called Stellar Terra, and I'm not going to get into all of the mechanics of how it works because it's really complicated. What I will say is that its Terra Blast gets buffed to 100 base power and drops the attack and special attack of the Pokemon when they use it. Now, why is this significant for Superior and Malamar? Well, they get access to Contrary, and yes, Contrary works with this strategy. To put it concisely, every time that Superior or Malamar uses this move, they're going to get a boost to their attack and their special attack stat, which is pretty good. They get to just keep clicking it over and over and over and over and over again until they're either dead or they're at +6 in both stats. Now, like I've said, they're probably not good. Why? Well, Superior and Malamar just aren't good Pokemon, fundamentally. Their stats suck. But I could see it being good on something like a Clefairy team. I'm sure somebody could figure it out, and I'm sure somebody will figure it out. It's not going to be me, but good luck. Okay, the next thing I'm going to include on my list is kind of just going to be 3 Pokemon grouped together. It's what I call the Bulky Waters. It's going to be Primarina, Araquanid, and Suicune. We really shouldn't be surprised that good Water-type Pokemon have been introduced into the metagame. Water is the most common type by a landslide. All 3 of these Pokemon are good for their own reasons, and I'm going to briefly break it down. Primarina is good because of its access to the ability Liquid Voice. It turns all of its sound-based moves into Water-type moves. This means that when it clicks Hyper Voice, it's a spread Water-type move, and it's really strong. You can combine it with something like Throat Spray to let it just keep clicking it over and over and over and over again, And you can also pair it with things like Perish Song, so you can click Perish Song, get the boost to your special attack, and then click Hyper Voice, Hyper Voice, Hyper Voice. Primarina is going to be mainly good on just balanced teams. It's a good water type. It'll be a good water type. It checks things like Urshifu. Araquanid will be good because of its ability Water Bubble. Boosts all of its water moves, can't get burned. Pretty good physical attacker. It's quite slow, so it'll function mainly on Trick Room teams. I'm expecting people to use it on stuff like Farigiraf. Farigiraf gets Rain Dance, you can get some cool strategies going with that. Overall, just a strong Pokemon, good stats, water type. Suicune, despite being the legendary, is the one I expect to see least use out of all of these. The reason it's here is because of its great utility. It's a really bulky Pokemon, and it gets access to things like Snarl, Scald, Tailwind. It's just a really good support Pokemon, and it can't get flinched because of its access to Inner Focus. Metagross, every 9-year-old edgelord's favorite Pokemon. And what can I say about Metagross? It's good! It's a good Steel type. Gets access to some new stuff. Hard Press is probably not good. What I will say is that Terrestrialization really benefits Metagross. Part of the weakness of Metagross in past formats was just the fact that it couldn't change out of its Steel Psychic typing. It's not a bad typing by any means, but it does get hit by a lot of common things like fire types, dark types. With Terrestrialization, all of that changes. It can Terra out of that into a Dragon type, a Grass type, anything it wants to. Metagross is great. Bullet Punch is good into Flutter Mane, especially if you're next to a Chien-Pao, which it's also good into because you can 2 KO it. It's been given a pretty good Psychic move now in Psychic Fangs, whereas previously the only 100% accurate Psychic move it got access to was Psycho Cut, which is bad. I don't know, Metagross is just one of those Pokemon that I expect to see consistently. I don't expect to see it a lot. I expect it to always be around. I think every tournament it'll have like a top 32, a top 16, something like that. I just don't expect it to peak regularly. I do think that it'll probably have a top cut or 2, but overall, just a consistently good Steel type. It'll be good on Chien-Pao balance, it'll be good on regular balance. Okay, the next Pokemon on the list is a really interesting case study as to why meta-defining Pokemon can kind of invalidate other meta-defining Pokemon, or what would be meta-defining Pokemon. Porygon2, a Pokemon that has been historically really, really good, with Sword and Shield kind of being its prime time, where it just got to shine with Dynamax and all of that. But this is what I was talking about earlier. Incinerar getting knockoff really sucks for Porygon2. Because Incinerar will be on a lot of teams, and there's almost no reason for Incinerar's Dark move to not be knockoff. So every time that Incinerar gets to be put in front of Porygon2, just knockoff, Eevee gone, goodbye bulk. Now, I know it sounds like I'm saying that Porygon2 is just completely invalidated by Incinerar's existence, but that's not necessarily true. See, Incinerar is not going to be on every single team, you don't have to bring Porygon2 into Incinerar teams. Knockoff maybe not actually hurting it as much as it can. Porygon2 is still a really bulky Pokemon in its own right. It'll be a really good support Pokemon on balanced teams. It'll offer some Trick Room speed control against opposing Tailwind teams, opposing Trick Room teams, kind of just lets you play the game in your own terms. Download's a really strong ability if you position it correctly. Tri-Attack's a strong move, Bolt Beam is good coverage. It will still be a good Pokemon. It gets to fulfill the same kind of niche as Cresselia and Farigiraf. Maybe doing it better? It's too early to say. It's just going to be one of those bulky Trick Room Pokemon that kind of just gets to exist in the metagame. And we'll see it. We might not see it as often as we would have in Sword and Shield, but we will see it. And last but not least for my list of returning Pokemon is Smeargle. Don't use it. It's bad. Somebody will find use for it with Fast Spore. But really? Okay, moving on to the section of the video that people are probably interested in. New Pokemon. The Indigo Disk has added 8 new Pokemon that we are allowed to use right now in this metagame. Terapagos is not legal, it'll be legal in GS Cup. I'll talk about it some other time. We're going to kick off this list of new Pokemon with Archaludon, the evolution to Duraludon. Basically, the whole thing that Archaludon does is be bulky. Its special defense is abysmal. Every other stat is great. Its defense is ridiculous. Its health is awesome. Its special attack is great. It's a good Pokemon. Steel Dragon is great typing. Dialga was awesome in Sword and Shield. Its signature move is called Electro Shot, which is a 130 base power Electro move that charges over 2 turns. Okay, that's fine. You have to run a Power Herb. Nope. If you're in rain, it just just goes at her. Just fires off. So, you get to put this thing next to a Pelipper or a Tornadus with Rain Dance. He just gets to sit there with an Assault Vest and Bulk. And just an Electro Shot. Oh, special attack boosts. Okay. Electro Shot again. Oh, special attack boosts. Oh, this Pokemon's a problem. Not to mention that every single time you hit it with an attack, it boosts its defense with stamina. So you can just be going at it. You can hit it with all the attacks you want, but if they're physical attacks, good luck. Now, obviously, the main Achilles heel of this Pokemon is its special defense is garbage. It's really bad. That's why you almost have to run Assault Vest with this Pokemon, lest you get nuked by Moonblast from Fluttermane. This Pokemon is really good, and I think a lot of people were doubting that it would be really good until they saw its stats and they realized, oh yeah, this thing's really good. It'll fit itself probably exclusively on rain teams. Don't hold me to that. There will probably be some people who are running like side beat up or side surging strike strategies with like body press stamina, but for the most part you will probably see it on rain teams where it just gets to click Electro Shot again and again and again and again, and it'll be good. It'll be really good. And now the counterpart to Archaludon, Hydrapple. And I really wish I could say that Hydrapple was good because it looks awesome. It's not. It's not. Its stats are fine. It's kind of not going to live up to the expectations that it wants to. You would be running it on a Trick Room team because it's super duper slow. But if you're running it on a Trick Room team, why are you running that special attacker over something like Armarouge, Hatterene? It just doesn't make too much sense. It does have a really interesting signature move with Fickle Beam that kind of just has a 30% chance to just be a 160 base power dragon move with no drawback. I guess the drawback being that 70% of the time it's 80 base power, which is kind of bad. Hydrapple it'll be around. Some people will try and make it work. Maybe some people will make it work. Listen, there are some crazy people out there. Cortex, that guy, if anybody's gonna make this Pokemon work, it's him. Okay, moving on to the new Paradox Pokemon. That, of course, being the Suicune, Raikou, Entei Pokemon that are in the past, and the Virizion, Cobalion, and Terrakion Pokemon that are in the future. Let's start with the past Paradox Pokemon. Walking Wake is the past version of Suicune, and it sure is a Pokemon. I'd say that the main draw that this Pokemon brings to the table is that it's a water type that you can use in Sun, which hasn't been a thing, oddly enough. Sun has been an archetype for years and years and years, but you would find yourself hard-pressed to find a water type that actually works on there and doesn't just get nerfed by the Sun. Walking Wake changes all of that. Photosynthesis boosts its stats, either special attack or speed, and Hydro Steam is a really good move that, instead of getting nerfed by Sun, boosts it, just like in Rain. So it's 80 base power, and just like in Rain, it would go to 120 base power, whether it's in Sun or Rain or whatever. This Pokemon has seen some ups and downs in early meta forecasting. I'd say the downs being most normies, me included, that tried to build it on like a Venusaur team, where it just didn't come through. And then I'd say the ups being something like Pengy's team, where it just kind of gets to bam, 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 water type on Sun. Next up is Gouging Fire, the past version of Entei. So this Pokemon's really interesting. Fire Dragon is a ridiculously good typing, but it's kind of just been mediocre so far. I'm not going to say anything about how this Pokemon will function at the upcoming Portland Regionals because I have no idea. This Pokemon's a wild card. Surface level, this Pokemon looks great. It's got a pretty good attack stat, it's pretty fast, it looks fine. But it's kind of just fallen short in the early tournaments we've been seeing. And I have no idea whether that's just to people not using it or just it's bad. The main niche that it's probably going to end up having is that it gets Howl. Howl is a really good support move that next to physical attackers you can use to boost both yours and your partner's physical attack by one stage. I would say the most successful iteration of this Pokemon so far would be when you're pairing it next to Kingambit, because you just get to Howl and Kingambit can't have its attack stat dropped. So you kind of just get to sit here, boost attack, boost attack, boost attack. It's also got some really neat utility. Breaking Swipe is a great move, dropping the offensive prowess of your opponent's team. And Heat Crash. I mean, Idoko's Flutter. What more do you want? It's a very interesting Pokemon that I'm not sure if it's going to make a big splash in the metagame. It's the wild card, I would say. You know what's not a wild card, though? Raging Bull, the past version of Raikou. This Pokemon's fantastic in every way, shape, and form. I know I've said it a lot for these Pokemon, but Electric Dragon is a ridiculously good typing. Not to mention its base stats are... Yeah, Thunderclap is also a really good move, being an Electric-type special Sucker Punch that kind of just shuts down Tornadus or Shifu. This Pokemon is extremely slappable. You can use it on so many different teams to just make it good. It's good on balanced teams to counter Torn or Shifu. It's good on Torn or Shifu to counter other Torn or Shifu. It's a really good Pokemon, and I think we had no idea what it was going to be until we got it, and its stats were what they were. The biggest grassroots tournament that was run before any official tournaments had both the finalist and the winner run Raging Bolt in completely different ways, which I think is just a testament to how good this Pokemon is. Neil Patel used it on Tailwind Team with Calm Mind, where it just kind of got to hit opposing Torn or Shifu, and also just as a win con with Calm Mind, it was really cool. And then Chris Hahn, the winner of the tournament, ended up just using it on a Balance Team. And it was good on a Balance Team, go figure. Yeah, Raging Bolt is one of those Pokemon that you should expect to be seeing in your tournament runs. So if you're rolling up to a regional, a local, whatever, it's going to be there. You should have answers to it. You should prep for it. Maybe use it. It's pretty good. It's really good. Now moving on to the future Pokemon. Okay, I'm going to start with Iron Leaves and Iron Boulder just to get them out of the way. They suck. They're not good. There's some niche uses to them. Iron Leaves is like fine, Psyblade's an okay move, but Grass Psychic is a pretty abysmal typing. And Iron Boulder, same kind of deal. Rock Psychic is not great. Its signature move is Mighty Cleave, which is pretty interesting admittedly as it hits through Protect as Urshifu would. But yeah, that's kind of it. These Pokemon are extremely underwhelming. And I think the only one that you should be caring about is Iron Crown. Iron Crown is nothing except Psyspam's newest tool. It gets access to Expanding Force, and it's fast, which is something that we haven't seen with Psyspam this generation so far. Tachyon Cutter is surprisingly a really great move that kind of just gets to kill Chien-Pao. It's a total 100 base power move, so you do 50 damage. Okay, you think you're done? Nope, you do 50 damage again, it just hits twice, and bye-bye Chien-Pao. Which is really helpful considering that this thing hates dark types, but overall, you kind of just get to put it next to Indeedee, and you just lead Indeedee Iron Crown, and you click Helping Hand Expanding Force, Helping Hand Expanding Force, Follow Me Expanding Force. The main item of choice will probably be Booster Energy, where you just get to either boost your speed or special attack, player's choice. I will say, there is a pretty considerable drawback to this Pokemon, and it is that it literally cannot touch Incinerar at all. It does get access to Terra Blast, so you can do things like, oh, I'm Terra Water, I'm going to click Terra Water, Terra Blast, Incin bye, or I am Terra Ground, I'm going to click Terra Ground, Terra Blast. But overall, if you're committing your Terastallization just by seeing Incinerar on Team Preview, you've probably lost the game already. That's not to say that people won't figure it out. I'm sure some people will find teams where Iron Crown is probably okay to just click Terra Water off the gates against Incinerar and just fire off Terra Blast. But overall, it's going to be the same way that Psyspam has always been. It's a very specific archetype that plays a very specific way, and if that very specific way gets faltered, that sucks. And next on my list here is, oh, we're done. That's it. That's all of the relevant returning and new Pokemon in the Indigo Disk DLC. Now, of course, this was just a brief overview of all of the Pokemon I felt were meta-relevant going into this format. Hopefully, I was able to answer most of, if not all of your questions surrounding the new Regulation F format. But if there's a Pokemon you want me to go more in-depth into, let me know in the comment sections below, because I'd be happy to do a more in-depth guide about most Pokemon. Not Smeargle. I'm not doing anything with Smeargle, but anything else, let me know. If you enjoyed this video and you want to hear all about Pokemon VGC, consider subscribing and ringing the notification bell, because it helps me out a ton and it allows me to make more videos like this one. With all of that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Hi, I'm back. Back to tell you to click the subscribe button and then watch another video. It's this button, then this button. Just click this and then this. I'm waiting. Come on, you gotta click the buttons. Dude, I'm stuck here until you click the buttons, please. Click the buttons!